So I'm going to discuss how we can change people's saving behavior over the long term using behavioral economic theory and applying that to user interface design. So there's one particular case where saving over the long term is important when you make repeated saving decision-making investments, and that's for retirement. And when most people think of retirement, you might think of sitting on a beach and never having to work again, or maybe you're thinking about pursuing your passion in your golden years of becoming a winemaker. Whatever that may be, there's a lot of money in retirement accounts. In the US, there's close to $20 trillion in these accounts, and yet most Americans are underfunding these retirement accounts, and education levels don't seem to matter because, for example, university professors, they don't do much better than the public at large. So what does this mean? A lot of people, especially in the United States, they're going to end up working in their retirements, and it's getting more expensive. Companies are getting rid of pensions, healthcare costs are going up, so it's becoming a lot more important to save for retirement. And yet most people, when they think about saving for retirement in the present day, they'll maybe log on to a retirement savings account once or a couple times a year and look at something that looks like this. This is a screenshot from Vanguard.com, and it shows a portfolio of stocks, bonds, and cash, and so on, and how much money you've saved to date. So people know that they're supposed to save for retirement, but they only sort of think about it a couple times a year, if that. So why is saving so hard? Well, you have to make repeated decisions about asset allocations of stocks and bonds and cash over time. Your risk in these investments has to decrease as you age. And it's hard to think about the effects of multiple decisions over time, especially with respect to compounding interest. And people don't think about probabilities and risk very well. So a common mistake is to try to maximize the amount of money you make by putting all your money into stocks, or conversely, trying to minimize all the volatility of your retirement portfolio account by putting all your money under your bed and losing out to inflation. So can we use HCI informed by behavioral economics to help people save more, since a lot of saving today is done online through these user interfaces? Well, quite a bit of work, research has already been done in the HCI community and in persuasive design with respect to changing people's behavior with respect to sustainability, and in healthcare informatics in repeated decision-making scenarios, and getting them to make comparisons and so on. In behavioral economics, we can look to prospect theory. And there are two parts of prospect theory that we want to, that can especially help us. The first is loss aversion, which is to say that if you lose something, it feels twice as bad as the good feeling you get from gaining something. And the second thing that we can look towards is endowment effect, which is to say, if I give you something, you become mentally invested in it. So think of any sort of conference you've gone to in the past, and you probably get a coffee mug or a water bottle or whatnot. It's actually kind of hard to get rid of that because you become invested in its as an object. So we had two research questions. The first was, does applying endowment effect and loss aversion to user interface design improve saving? And second, can we get people to better reach a savings goal if they understand the impact of their present day savings decisions? So to test that, we created a retirement portfolio simulator that's similar to what you would find on Vanguard.com, and we used real stock market and bond data to test a simulation over 34 years where we gave people $10,000 each year to reach a goal of saving $1.5 million. They could change the percent of stocks, bonds, and cash that they allocated each year, and on the right you can see how much money they've saved today. They could see how much money they could save to date. There were two conditions we tested, as I mentioned. Endowment effect on the left, We showed them their goal, and depending on how they changed their asset allocations, we showed how they differed from that goal. And so in the endowment condition, we presented it in such a way as if we were giving them $1.5 million, and how they adjusted it, they'd be either if they deviated from that, they'd be taking too much risk or taking too little risk. And we did this on Mechanical Turk, and if they reached the $1.5 million goal, they would receive the maximum bonus. If they did not, they would get a less. If they took too much risk, we would give them less of a bonus. If they took too little risk, we would give them less of a bonus as well. On the right is the loss aversion condition, and we showed them how a $10,000 investment would perform through the end of the study. So you can see, they could see sort of the best case and worst case scenarios and how much money they would potentially be losing if they made the wrong decisions. So what we found was that the endowment effect had sort of the strongest influence in how people invested. And here I show sort of how far people are from the goal, so the gap from the goal of $1.5 million. So in the endowment effect condition, they were closest to the goal. In the control condition, they were furthest from the goal. Loss aversion was somewhere in between. We also looked at the number of asset allocation changes people made in the study, and the mean yearly change percentage-wise in their asset allocations. And in both cases, the endowment effect, it influenced them in such a way so they would make more asset allocation changes, and the percentages between year to year were greater as well. The control condition had the least amount of effect. We looked at risk over time as well, and these dots you see represent how the percentage they had invested in stocks for each of the 34 periods. And in the endowment effect condition, you see this trend they took more risk because we gave them a riskier goal than in the control condition. And the downward slopes show sort of how you're supposed to think about retirement, decreased risk over time. So showing an endowment does indeed motivate people to preserve that endowment. We explained the loss aversion effect being weaker because it only showed sort of the impact of 1 year's worth of investment versus this entire retirement pot that the endowment effect showed of $1.5 million. So user interfaces informed by behavioral economic theory really can help people save more money. It increases the likelihood of people reaching that savings goal. As I said, endowment effect was the most effective. Loss aversion also did have an effect. Both kept people on track. And we believe that financial firms and regulators can help the public if they make these sort of small design changes to their user interfaces and save people quite a bit of money and help them reach their goals. Thank you. I mean, this is also applicable to regulators, right? So regulators could potentially enforce this. Financial firms, so there are a variety of companies out there today that are already helping people reach these goals through automated investment techniques. And they benefit from it in such a way where they charge some fees to do the automated investing for you. But through this the fees they get from automated investing are less than what they would get through traditional investing. So yeah, it's a good question whether or not they would be motivated to make these changes, but they can get the benefit of people adding more money to their accounts, right? Yeah.
Hi, I'm Jasmine from the University of Michigan. My question is, when you're evaluating both the HCI, like the design of the interface and the theory that you're testing, how do you determine whether it was actually the theory that was being proven or misproven in this case, or whether it was whether the interface was good or bad?
Right. Yeah, so we did have the control condition, and we've actually tested this interface using a variety of different techniques. We tested it using persuasive design modifications, changing the labeling and such. So we do know, given sort of the other tests we've done, that behavioral economics does have an impact, and presenting the information in this way does have an impact. You know, I guess we could sort of change the layout of the page in some way, showing behavioral economics manifested in another way. Maybe that would have some sort of difference, but we feel like the significance of the two different conditions that we tested was great enough such that, like, it's more than what you would find from just changing the layout.